Here we are in the old laboratory. We're going to be weighing out what we've got. I've got a simple set of scales right here. I will weigh out and then set the tare to 0. We'll add our hops. And we have 8.6 ounces of wet hops. Keep a record of all this. Now here comes the hard part about it all. You just saw me weigh out 8.7 ounces of wet Cascade hops. Just the other day I weighed out 5.5 ounces of hops, wet hops. And we're going to see what that ended up drying out to. And our ending balance is 1.8 ounces. So that becomes quite the reduction in weight. Also from the hops harvest, we've got another example here of, I picked 27.6 ounces of wet hops, dried out to 6.83 ounces. So there's a big reduction. You got to get used to that. And even when they're wet, you got a whole bucket full. It's only about 19 ounces that fills this entire bucket right here. 3 different ways at least for drying hops. One, I set them on a screen in an enclosed building I have down in the field. It's a pump house. It does have some aeration in it, and it has no light or no windows in it. I had a fan set up and a series of screens laid out on top of each other where I was running a fan, and I had about 3 days worth of drying to dry out my cones sufficiently. The other way I've tried is with a regular food dehydrator. I found that to be rather quick, but it also seemed you need to keep up with that. I think it will have a tendency to dry them out too much, too quickly if you don't keep an eye out. I didn't have a very high stack of, maybe only about 3 high in the stack of the food dehydrator itself, and spent about 4 or 5 hours at the most with that. Really got them dry. The third method I'm trying out is, we'll take a look at it. It's a new method I'm trying. I'm using a dehumidifier in a, when I got the hops on top of a screen, the dehumidifier is blowing over them. That's slightly warm air. I sort of have that, have a tent over the top, a plastic tent, in a way to more direct the flow of the warmer, drier air going over these hops. And I tried that yesterday, for example. I ran the dehumidifier approximately 20 hours. It was just fine. The hops seemed to be dry, and we're going to go down and take a look at that method right now. Kind of a rather simple method right now I've got going on. My dehumidifier placement right here over the top of this screen, and I'm going to lay these hops out. I'm going to just spread them out over the screen, and during the course of time we're gonna have these things dry enough, and within just less than a 24-hour period, and we'll be ready to bag them up. And the final process right here for weighing out, I try to get a little more accurate. I've got one of these smaller scales right here that gives me ounces to the hundredths, and I'm going to be using it to actually weigh out my my hops in this final test. And again, what we'll do is we'll sample out and put on I'm just using a cup here, setting the tare, equaling it out to 0, and then filling it up full of hops and measuring out. What I'm trying to do is get 2 ounces into a Food Saver type bag, weighing it out as I go. Adding it into the bag. Now these will compress quite heavily down, and you'll be surprised at that when we take a look at it. Okay, if you can see that, that's I pushed it down into the bag. That's 2 ounces. We're going to put that into a Food Saver vacuum or a vacuum sealing system. We will vacuum seal these and put them in the freezer. I'll mark down the date, and that should be about it. Fast and dry. There you have it. 1 or 2 ounces. Ready for the freezer.